Let's do another video update here and in downtown central Nicosia, Cyprus. And we have a bunch of stories to get to. And we're going to talk a little bit about Le Pen and the pathetic smear tactic that the EU is using to help their little errand boy Macron win the elections. They're pulling out all the stops, and we're going to talk about what they're doing to Marine Le Pen. But let's first talk about what's going on in Ukraine, and let's start off with Azovstal. Let's talk a little bit about what's going on in Russia with the economy, Ukraine, and with their economy, and then we'll wrap it up with France, and maybe we'll do a clown world with regards to Germany. Germany seems to be getting a lot of clown world segments, it seems. But first, let's talk about, real quick, about Azovstal. And I'm reading a lot of mainstream media reports with regards to what's happening at this steel factory in Mariupol. And how these 2,000 Ukraine fighters, Ukraine military, foreign fighters, foreign mercenaries, NATO guys, all of them surrounded in the steel factory, and how the mainstream media is positioning it as some sort of last stand, and they're turning them into hero martyrs, it seems. I mean, I'm reading like Reuters and the Associated Press and all kinds of publications, even local ones here in Cyprus, even the ones in Cyprus, which are just pretty much parroting what Reuters is saying and what CNN is saying, but they're positioning these guys stuck in the steel factory as being heroic by deciding to make a final stand and face annihilation by the Russian military, which is just a terrible thing because they shouldn't be forced to be killed in this way. They should be allowed to surrender. But the way the collective West is positioning it, the way they're framing this narrative, is that these guys are going to be like some sort of Alamo, if people in the States understand what I mean, some sort of Alamo heroic last stand, and 300 or something like that. And this is just a terrible thing to do. It's evil. It's freaking evil, because they should be allowed to surrender. They should be allowed to face the consequences if they're mercenaries. If they are mercenaries, face the consequences. And if they're Ukraine military, Geneva Convention, international law and Geneva Convention, and eventually go back home to their families and loved ones. That should be what they should be allowed to do. That would be the humane thing to do. But the collective West that is giving the orders, NATO, the Biden White House, that have given the orders that these people should not surrender, else they be shot, well, they have figured out that they're much more useful in this kind of last stand narrative than they would be should they surrender. Should they surrender, well, it would be a debacle for the collective West. It would be very hard to hide this from the other Ukraine forces that are fighting. They would get wind of what just happened in Azovstal, and they would ask the question, well, I thought we were winning this war. Why did 2,000 plus of our military brethren surrender? That's what they would be asking. And it would be an embarrassment for the collective West, for the narrative that they've been throwing out to their citizens. And of course, you have these 400 foreign fighters, foreign mercenaries, as the Russians label them. And it would be embarrassing for them to be revealed, especially if some of them are French, given the French elections, and I will get to France in my final segment. But anyway, either way, the powers that be have figured out that these soldiers are better off facing what the Russians are going to do to them rather than surrendering and sparing their lives. And the media is, of course, playing their part. The puppet media is doing their part to help out the collective West in what will be a terrible fate for these soldiers. But that's the collective West mainstream media for you. So anyway, that's just a quick update on Azovstal. We still don't have any clear understanding what the Russians are going to do, how they're going to handle these trapped soldiers, given the fact that they missed the 1 p.m. Sunday deadline. So that's that. We have the news about, let's talk about the Ukraine economy, since we're talking about Ukraine, and the fact that Zelensky has asked the G7 countries for $50 billion in a bailout. So that's what Zelensky needs right now in order to bail out the Ukraine economy. Keep in mind that Ukraine is still trying to function. I mean, they've got taxes to collect. They've got salaries to pay the government employees, you imagine. They've got infrastructure to take care of. They've got the military to pay. They've got all kinds of expenses to keep the country solvent. But obviously, they won't be able to meet those obligations given the dynamics of what's happening. And so they need a bailout. And it's the ask right now is $50 billion from the G7 nations. And I think the G7 nations are going to have a really hard time with this, but they're going to cough it up. The problem is that this is not a one-time gig. Ukraine's going to need this money and a lot more with each passing quarter, each passing year, because they won't be able to make it. They are now in the firm hands of the collective West, and the collective West is going to have to take care of this big country. I mean, Ukraine already had financial problems before the war. They were already on the brink of bankruptcy if it wasn't for Western bailouts. And when I mean bailouts, I mean loans. And so now they're really on the hook. So, you know, the collective West has gone all in with regards to Ukraine. Well, it's not only all in from a military perspective, they are all in on a financial perspective. And it's not going to get easier. It's going to get a lot worse. And given all the economic problems that the collective West has, especially the European Union, it's going to be really interesting to see how they're going to get out of this one. Printing money is not going to solve the problem here. Putting Ukraine in debt is not going to solve the problem. So, really big issues that that every American and EU citizen is going to have to deal with by flipping the bill in one form or another. But you know, this is the path that our leaders in the European Union and the United States have decided to take us down. So we have that bit of news. We have the news coming out of Russia and coming from Elvira Nabiullina, who is the head of the central bank in Russia. And she came out with a statement saying that now the Russian economy is going to enter a very challenging period, a difficult period. And the reason being is that all the sanctions that have happened, the fact that half of Russia's reserves have been stolen, all of these things that have happened in the first shock and awe campaign that the collective West put on Russia with regards to this economic war, well, that shock and awe was basically a shock and awe that really hit the financial sector of the Russian economy. According to Nabiullina, now the Russian economy is going to be heading into a period where these economic difficulties with regards to the stolen reserves, with regards to the sanctions, are going to start to affect the real economy, the consumer economy. And so she's giving the warnings out to the Russian people that the economy is about to hit a very critical and challenging period. She made it a point to stress the fact that Russia has half of the reserves of the 650 billion that they initially have. Russia can use half of those reserves, though those reserves are in RMB, they're in gold, and they're in various other assets. They could be used to a certain extent to help Russia weather the financial storm, but she stressed that the other half of the reserves were stolen, and you know, the Russian economy can't count on those reserves because they were confiscated. And so she's throwing down a challenge, I think, to the Russian people, saying, look, we're going to enter a difficult period. The financial sector seems to have weathered the storm of the initial shock and awe, but now it's going to enter a period where we see the effects of the sanctions taking hold of the real economy. And she does make some points, saying that the Russian government was very wise in in preparing for an eventual ban on SWIFT. So they took precautions there. She said that the Russian government took other precautions, partnering with China, looking at alternative markets, and all these other things that the Russian government did over the last 8 years to make the challenge of these sanctions less daunting. And while Nabiulina gave a warning that things are going to be hard, when you read through her statement, you understood that it's going to be challenging, but that Russia should make it through. This is what I kind of gathered from her statements. But there's no doubt it's going to be challenging, and the Russian government is going to have to tighten their belts, and the Russian economy is going to have to tighten its belt and get through this period. The Kremlin has also said that the next 6 months are going to be challenging, but after 6 to 12 months, the Russian economy should find its footing. This is what Nabiulina said, and I think she's done a very, very good job, an incredible job, weathering the initial shock and awe attack that was put on Russia. But now it's got to enter a period where the consumer economy, the real economy, has to buckle up. So those are the reports coming out of Russia. And let's talk about France and then do a clown world about Germany. So France, they are targeting Marine Le Pen, the EU, and the EU's like their office for anti-theft or anti-fraud or something like that. One of these stupid acronyms that the European Union likes to throw around. I'm convinced that the European Union has like an office in Brussels with like 50 people that think up these clever like acronym names for their various institutions, their various bureaucracies. This one's called Olaf. It's like the Office of Legal Anti-Theft or European Anti-Theft something or another. One of these stupid institutions that justify the existence of the European Union. Anyway, they have come up with a report which supposedly they handed to the French authorities, but has somehow leaked to French media. Somehow, magically, French mainstream media got a hold of this report, and it's claiming that Marine Le Pen, her father, and other associates, while they were part of the European Parliament, they managed to misappropriate and embezzle around 650,000 euros. And they're now under investigation, some type of investigation. And this has been handed over to the French authorities, and the French authorities have confirmed the receipt of these documents, and they said they're looking them over. On her end, Marine Le Pen's lawyers, they have said that these are old allegations, 10-year-old allegations, many of them, and Marine Le Pen hasn't been afforded any type of due process as well to respond to these allegations, because she hasn't really seen these documents. All of this seems to be in some sort of secret vacuum that all of this is taking place. Of course, none of this is connected to the elections, the final round of the elections that's going to take place this Sunday. None of it is meant to help prop up Macron and to help ensure that Macron wins. None of it. This is just coincidence. And I have a bridge to sell you. If you believe that, as Alexander says, well, I have a bridge to sell you. So yeah, the EU, in all its patheticness, if that's even a word, patheticness, in all its patheticness, is doing everything it can to make sure it sinks Le Pen and props up little Napoleon Macron. It is absolutely pathetic. I think this is going to backfire on the EU, because it's so blatantly obvious what they're trying to do that I think, I hope a lot of French voters are going to say, you know what, we're sick of the EU meddling in elections. This is election meddling. Make no mistake about it. And the EU always does it. The EU, if they can't ensure their election results, then they will cheat and they will lie and they will steal to make sure that they get the results that they want. Sometimes they'll even hold new elections. I mean, you've had that happen, I believe in Ireland you had it happen, and they tried it in Brexit. I mean, they will do anything they can to make sure they get the result that they want, the outcome that they want. And they're ruthless. They are ruthless. They are savage. The EU is just about as, I mean, what can you say? This is just a very sad, a very pathetic attempt to further rig the French elections. That is how unsure, that is how worried they are with Marine Le Pen. They're not sure that Macron can pull this off. Even though it's going to be difficult for Le Pen to win, the EU they're worried. That's why they're doing this. So that's what's going on with Le Pen. And let's do a really quick clown world. And this has to do with Germany. And I'm going to pull out the article here. So Germany, because there's a quote, well, Germany is actually very divided on gas and stuff like that as well. Half of the German population, 70% of the German population living in the West, believes that it's worth cutting back on hot showers and sacrificing many of the luxuries that energy and electricity affords you, like lights and heat, in order to stick to Putin, while 40% of the East Germans are like, screw this. They're like, it's not worth it. It is absolutely not worth it. But there was another article which I saw, which said that the agriculture secretary of Germany is coming out with statements saying that a war is necessary in Ukraine. And I don't have the quote with me. I'm trying to look for the quote. I don't have it. I'll put the quote up there so you guys can read it from I believe it is the agricultural secretary of Germany, came out with some statements saying that this war is necessary and the EU should absolutely go to war with Russia in order to protect the food supply and to protect the wheat supply. And his logic is that Russia wants to control the wheat supply. He says that he's getting reports that the Russians are actually burning down much of the agricultural land in Ukraine. I've never heard that. I haven't heard that at all. Why would Russia do that? But anyway, that's what he's throwing out there. And he said that the European Union and NATO should absolutely confront Russia and go to war with Russia in order to safeguard the food supply and wheat exports. So that's his justification for escalating with Russia. Is in order to save the food supply, you have to get regime change in Moscow. And so that's kind of a clown word. I guess we kind of had two clown worlds from Germany. One was this poll of the Germans the West Germans that are ready to freeze in order to stick it to Putin, and the East Germans that are, screw this, we're not going to freeze to stick it to Putin. And then you have the agriculture secretary saying that we have to go to war. All of Europe has to go to war in Ukraine in order to prevent Putin from burning down the food. Putin, the super villain Putin, the super mastermind villain Putin. What they won't say about him, my God. They are so desperate to go to war, these guys. All of these EU officials, they want war so bad. They're not going to have to fight it. So for them, it's okay. They're not going to suffer. It's everyone else that's going to suffer. Anyway, everybody, that is the video, theduran.locals.com. I am signing out. I'm going to get this video up, and I will see you guys later. Take care.